No white sprinter in recorded history had ever done what Sam Blaskowski did on a warm night in Tennessee. He ran the 100 meters in 9.89 seconds. That is a number that puts a man on the all-time list. The same list that begins with Usain Bolt at 9.58. And almost nobody who starts where Sam started ever gets near it. So forget the slow build. Here is the payoff first. A sprinter out of a small Division III college, a man who once worked a regional airport job just to fund a move across the country, just ran himself into roughly the 50 fastest performers in the history of the event. And he did it in a single race that broke a barrier no white athlete had ever crossed. It happened in late May 2026 at the Music City Track Carnival in Cleveland, Tennessee. Not a global championship, not a stadium packed with 100,000 people. A regional meet, the kind of meet where the cameras are not really watching, where the headlines are usually written somewhere else. That is where the fastest time in the recorded history of white sprinting got run. To understand how strange that is, you have to understand the list itself. Only a few hundred win-legal runs in the entire history of the 100 meters have ever been faster than 9.89. Out of every sprinter who has ever laced up spikes, on every track on every continent, across every generation since they started timing this race electronically, fewer than that have gone quicker with a legal wind. Think about how many millions of people have sprinted for a living, or for glory, or just to find out how fast they were. The list of the truly fastest is brutally short, and Sam Blaskowski walked onto a regional track in Cleveland, Tennessee, and put his name inside that tiny group. And there was a specific wall in front of him that night. For about 15 years, the fastest 100 meters ever run by a white sprinter belonged to France's Christophe Lemaitre. Lemaitre ran 9.92 seconds back in 2011, and that mark just sat there. Year after year it sat there. The next man close to it was Italy's Filippo Tortu at 9.99 in 2018, and even he was a tenth of a second adrift. 15 years is a long time for a record to stand untouched. Whole careers came and went. Nobody moved it. Then Sam ran 9.89, and the wall came down by 0.03 of a second. Now here is the part that makes track people stop and stare. He did not creep up to that time. He did not shave it off across a season of small improvements. His previous personal best was 10.05 seconds. From 10.05 to 9.89 in one race, he skipped the entire 9.90s range. There is a whole tier of times, the 9.9s and the 9.95s and everything in between, that most sprinters spend years grinding through, and Sam simply jumped over all of it. One gun, one race, gone. If you have ever watched sprinting closely, you know that this just does not happen. At this level, progress is measured in hundredths. A sprinter who knocks off 0.02 of a second in a year is having a good year. A sprinter who finds 0.05 is having a breakthrough. Sam found 0.16 in a single afternoon. He went from a man on the edge of breaking 10 seconds to a man almost 0.2 under it, in the time it takes to read this sentence out loud. There are coaches who have spent entire careers and never once seen a jump like that from an athlete they trained. The wind that night was legal, plus 1.5 meters per second, which matters, because a time only counts for the record books if the tailwind is inside the legal limit. This one was. So the 9.89 is real, it is clean, and it stands. Let me put that 9.89 in company you will recognize. That is the exact time Noah Lyles ran to take bronze at the World Championships in 2025. Read that again. A man almost nobody outside the sport had heard of, out of Division III, ran the same time it took to win a global medal on the biggest stage in track. In one season, Sam became the number 2 American and the number 2 man in the world. Number 2, in the world. Let those rankings land properly. Number 2, American means that in a country that has produced more sprint legends than any nation on earth, a country obsessed with speed, there was exactly one man faster than Sam in 2026. Number 2 in the world means that across every track nation on the planet, every academy, every funded program with decades of history behind it, only a single sprinter alive had a quicker best that season. And he came from the place the sport tells you greatness never comes from. The list does not lie, the clock does not flatter. He earned that ranking with a time that holds up against the best in the world. So who is this guy, and where did he actually come from? He came from the University of Wisconsin Lacrosse, Division III. If you do not follow college athletics, Here is what that means. Division III schools do not hand out athletic scholarships. There is no full ride for being fast. Sam ran without a scholarship, which means he was not the prospect every big program was fighting over. He was not on the radar of the powerhouse track schools. He was a kid who was quick on a small campus, in a small division, where the fastest sprinters in the country almost never come from. This is the part that should reset how you think about talent. The big track programs, the ones with the budgets and the facilities and the famous coaches, they recruit hard. They scout the fast kids early. If a sprinter has real Olympic-level speed, the system is built to find him in high school and pull him into a scholarship program long before he ever reaches a small Division III school in Wisconsin. Sam slipped through every layer of that net. Either nobody saw what he had, or what he had simply was not there yet and he built it later, the hard way, on his own dime. Both of those answers are remarkable. Both of them mean the world had no idea what was coming. And then he bet on himself. He took a job at a regional airport to pay for a move to Florida, chasing better coaching and better competition. Think about that picture. Clocking in at an airport, watching planes push back from the gate, saving up so he could go somewhere and find out how fast he really was. That is not the story of a sure thing. That is the story of a long shot who refused to accept the level he was born into. Most people in that situation make the safe choice. They keep the job, they let the dream cool off. They tell themselves they gave it a shot. The talented kid from the small school is one of the most common stories in all of sports, and the ending is almost always the same. The talent fades into a regular life and nobody ever hears the name. Sam refused that ending. He used the airport paycheck as fuel, not as a finish line. The job was not the dream. The job was the ticket to the dream, and he bought it himself, one shift at a time. The bet paid off. In Florida, he ended up training under coach Dennis Mitchell at Star Athletics, and look at the room he walked into. He trains alongside Kenny Bednarik, an Olympic finalist and a 9.94 sprinter. He shares a track with Sha'Carri Richardson, one of the most famous names in the sport. The kid who could not get a scholarship is now doing his reps next to Olympic medalists and outrunning parts of that field. Stop and sit with that detail, because it matters more than it sounds. Kenny Bednarik has run 9.94. He is an Olympic finalist, a man who has stood on the line at the games. And Sam, the Division III walk-on with the airport job, has now run faster than that personal best. He went from a track where the best sprinters in the country never appear, to a track where they train every single day, and inside one season he was not just keeping up, he was leading. The room that was supposed to humble him is the room he started to beat. Here is my question for you, and I want you to drop it in the comments. If Sam Blaskowski went from a no-scholarship Division III runner working an airport job to a top 2 sprinter on the planet in this little time, what is his actual ceiling? Where does this stop? Tell me below. Because that is the real story here. Not just the 9.89, the direction. If you believe Sam Blaskowski is going to make an Olympic final and run even faster, subscribe right now, because you are going to want to say you saw it before the rest of the world did. And the reason to believe is coming from Sam himself. By his own account, he does not think he has peaked. Sit with that. A man who just ran the fastest time of his life, by a margin almost nobody ever produces, looks at it and sees a floor, not a ceiling. He has skipped an entire tier of the event, broken a 15-year barrier, landed on the all-time list, and his own read on the situation is that there is more in the tank. So where does the ceiling actually live? At the very top of this event sits Usain Bolt, 9.58 seconds, run in Berlin in 2009, the world record and the line every sprinter measures himself against, knowingly or not. Nobody is saying Sam is about to touch that. That number is its own universe, set by the greatest sprinter who ever lived, and it has stood untouched for well over a decade. But understand what the gap between 9.89 and the very best in history really is. It is not a different sport. It is the same race, the same 100 meters of red track, the same start, the same lean at the line. The distance between a man on the all-time list and the immortals at the top is measured in fractions of a single second. And here is the thing that should make you lean in. Sam has just shown, in the most dramatic way possible, that he can find fractions of a second in places nobody expected him to look. He did not find 1 or 2 hundredths, he found 16. A man who can do that once and then tell you he is not finished is a man you do not bet against lightly. That is what changes everything about how you watch him now. Before this race, he was a curiosity. After it, every fast time he runs is a headline, because the world has been told exactly who he is and exactly where he came from. There is no hiding now. The number 2 ranking in the world is not a fluke you tuck away. It is a target painted on a man, and a promise about the next 2 years. And the people who run this sport for a living are watching differently now too. A 10.05 sprinter is a name in a results sheet. A 9.89 sprinter who broke a 15-year barrier and says he has not peaked is a problem for everyone else in the field. The other top sprinters in the world now have to account for a man almost none of them saw coming a year ago. The kid from the small school is no longer the underdog story in the background. He is in the picture, in the rankings, in the conversation, and every one of his rivals knows it. And those next 2 years point at one place. Los Angeles. LA 2028 is the next Olympics, on home soil, in front of an American crowd, and Sam Blaskowski has just put himself squarely in that conversation. A sprinter who could not get a college scholarship is now a legitimate name to watch for an Olympic team, in his own country, on the biggest stage the sport has. The blocks, the gun, the roar of a home stadium, lane after lane of the fastest men alive, and somewhere in that field, the kid from Division 3, who once worked an airport to get there. That is the wild part of this. The clock does not care where you came from. It does not check whether you had a scholarship. It does not ask what division you ran in or what job you worked to afford the plane ticket. It only reads the time, and the time read 9:89. The same number it took to win a world championship medal. A number that erased a record that stood for about 15 years. A number that no white sprinter in the recorded history of the event had ever produced. He produced it from the unlikeliest place in the sport. No scholarship, no spotlight, no safety net. Just a long shot who kept betting on himself until the clock finally agreed with him. A small college, an airport job, a one-way move to Florida, and then one race that rewrote what people thought was possible for a runner with his story. That is the whole arc, and it happened faster than almost anyone in this sport thought it could. A kid from a small school just ran himself onto the all-time list, and he says he is not done. So tell me in the comments, does Sam Blaskowski reach an Olympic podium before this story is over? Subscribe so you are here for every step, because if this is the beginning, you do not want to miss what comes next.